Ahead on Face the State, an in-depth conversation with America's top diplomat in Ukraine. Where would Ukraine be today without the support of America?
I mean, it's an unthinkable thing, but I think that Putin would like to wipe Ukraine off the map, to take it over militarily, to destroy it. And I'm really grateful.
U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Bridget Brink on the high stakes of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the importance of U.S. aid, the destruction in the country, her role in helping to push for victory, and the day-to-day danger of living and working in the war-torn country. Also, a new initiative to make sure road workers get home to their families. More troopers on the ground and in the air will be watching for dangerous drivers in road construction zones. One mother's grief underscores the importance of respecting the workers.
One split-second distraction can cause a lifetime of devastation because I live it every single day.
Plus, a place of caring, comfort, and compassion during the AIDS crisis in Columbus. After helping hundreds feel secure in their last moments, it has now secured its place in history. We look at the poignant and powerful history of Pater Noster House. Thanks for joining us this Sunday morning for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. Imagine sitting in a meeting and an air raid siren goes off. You rush to the safety of a bunker, and when the danger clears, you go back and continue the meeting. That's an almost daily occurrence for U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Bridget Brink. As the war between Ukraine and Russia rages on well into its third year now, she believes there is no more important diplomatic job on the planet. Despite the danger, she says she is proud to do it and to lend a hand so Ukraine can win. She took the position just a couple months after the war started in 2022, knowing full well what she was getting into. I recently had the chance to sit down one-on-one with Ambassador Brink to talk about the high stakes of the war, what she believes U.S. aid means to the Ukrainian war effort, and the daily dangers of living and working in a war zone. Can you describe for us what it's like in Ukraine? You're there all the time for the last 2 years.
Well, it's a war zone. Over the last 2 years, since the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia has launched thousands of missiles and drones, including from North Korea, including from Iran, on Ukraine, on its critical energy infrastructure, on its cities, and as well as fought with its military forces.
What's it like to be there, to live there? What happens on a day-to-day basis in terms of dealing with those types of dangers and threats?
Well, I have an incredible team of diplomats from across the government who are there together with me under really challenging circumstances. We have air raid alerts every single day. A couple happened even since I've just been back in America. And we work 24/7 to support the president's objectives to help Ukraine win the war, to help keep the economy alive, and also to support Ukraine's efforts to transform into a country that is a stronger democracy in the context of war.
And are there times where it's stop a meeting and head to a bunker?
Absolutely, a lot of times actually. People might say like, well, should we be there? My answer is absolutely yes. We need to be there, and we try very hard to manage the risk, but there is a risk because of the missiles and drones that Putin is launching into the country. But importantly, even outside of Kyiv, where my embassy is based, there's a lot of attacks that are happening in cities and villages across Ukraine. So for example, right now in Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second largest city, is under really devastating attack from Russia. The Ukrainians are now holding their own, but the Russians are sending 1-ton World War II era bombs onto the city. If you can imagine that, if that were an American city, what our response would be. But it underscores the importance of us being there in order to try to support Ukraine in its effort to fight this invasion by Russia.
How dangerous is it for you?
It's hard to calculate. I don't really think about that. I have a security office and people who think all the time about my security, but also importantly to me, most importantly, the security of my team. And I'm confident that they are doing everything possible to manage the risk and mitigate the risk where they can. My belief is that this, our longstanding policy with regard to Europe, U.S. policy for decades, has been supportive of a Europe whole, free, and at peace. And Putin is trying to undermine that strategic national interest of the United States. And it's deeply important to us and to our homeland that we don't let Putin win. So for me, as a professional diplomat and a foreign policy expert, there is no more important diplomatic job on the planet. And so I'm so proud to take it and to do what I can to lend my hand so that Ukraine can win.
Is Putin someone you think is just determined to win at all costs? Or is there a chance at some point, maybe in the not too distant future, of a ceasefire?
It's hard to know. I definitely think that Putin is determined to take and destroy Ukraine. And whether that is now or later, or with a ceasefire or a temporary pause, I think it's clear that he wants to stop Ukraine from moving toward the West, from fulfilling this aspiration of the Ukrainian people that dates back decades to be a stronger democracy and a strong economy that's integrated into Europe. That's the choice of the Ukrainians. That's not our choice. But to have a country of some 40 million people with the human capital and the capability of Ukraine militarily and as an economic and a diplomatic partner, that is fundamentally in our interest as well. And I think Putin will do what he thinks is necessary to try to stop it. And what we need to do is help lead the free world as the leader of the free world to make sure that our interests and our values prevail.
I think I read that the U.S. investment in aid to Ukraine has reached, I believe, $52 billion at this point. How critical, in your estimation, is that U.S. aid to Ukraine in keeping Russia from winning and taking over Ukraine?
It's absolutely essential, and I'm really grateful to the Congress, to both parties. About 70% of the Congress supported the latest supplemental to Ukraine, as well as to our president for leading us in terms of ensuring we could get the support, because what it is doing is it's supporting the weapons that Ukraine has to fight the war. They're not asking for our people, only the weapons. It's also supporting efforts to give some budget support so they can pay their first responders and others that are responding to all of Russia's attacks. Every penny of Ukraine's tax money goes to their military, goes to the fight, every single penny. And then the third part of our assistance is to support their efforts to keep their economy alive by helping them send their exports out and also to protect the energy grid. So it's vital. Ukrainians would not be able to win without that support. And just one point on the security support, it's weapons, not money. And about half of the security support goes back into America to replenish and refresh and revitalize our own defense industrial base. So for example, in Lima, Ohio, Abrams tanks are made. We are giving Ukraine, as part of our assistance, Abrams tanks. And so the supplemental money comes back to America, to Ohio, to the manufacturer of the Abrams tanks so that it can be replenished and then put back into U.S. stocks. It actually has a very beneficial impact specifically on us as well.
So when people hear aid to Ukraine, they think this is a bucket of money or a bucket of bullets, tanks, airplanes, whatever, that is just going there, but it's actually money that's being spent here to be shipped over, some of it.
A very high percentage of it is being actually spent in the United States, so also a benefit to us.
Where would Ukraine be today without the support of America?
I mean, it's an unthinkable thing, but I think that Putin would like to wipe Ukraine off the map, to take it over militarily, to destroy it. Towns and villages, especially in the east, have been completely flattened and destroyed. It's heartbreaking. In addition to people who have been killed, and not just the military people, the civilians. The numbers are not even fully known. There are over 100,000 cases of war crimes and atrocities that I can only imagine we have seen only in World War II, that we have not seen since that time. There are almost 10 million people who remain displaced, either inside Ukraine or outside Ukraine.
10 million.
10 million, and over $486 billion worth of damage. This is what Putin is doing to a country of 40 million people, and one that shows that his efforts are solely to destroy the country, going after the cultural areas of the country. For example, in Kharkiv just yesterday, a book manufacturer was completely destroyed. Going after hospitals, going after schools. In many places in the country, kids are going to school in bunkers. So it's hard to even imagine if we were living in this situation in America, but it is so utterly unacceptable and wrong on a moral plane, but also very dangerous, because if Putin is allowed to succeed in his effort, he will be at the doorstep of NATO. And at that point, it will become more costly for the United States in terms of money, but also it potentially embroils us into a wider conflict. And we haven't faced this since World War II. So I think this is something where the consequences of not defeating Putin are extraordinarily high for the United States.
Ambassador Brink was in Ohio to speak at the bicentennial celebrations at Kenyon College. She earned a bachelor's degree in political science there. She joined the State Department in 1996. Before her confirmation as ambassador to Ukraine, Brink served as ambassador to the Slovak Republic. There is much more in this interview. You can watch the full conversation on 10tv.com and 10TV Plus, our free streaming app available on Roku, Amazon Fire, or Apple TV. Well, still ahead on Face the State.
It's a ridiculous situation that we were even talking about, that Biden might not be on the ballot in the fall.
Problem solved after Governor Mike DeWine called the legislature into special session. But a second bill lawmakers passed got some pushback from some who say it won't stand up in the courts. Plus,
There is not a phone call, there's not a text message, there's nothing in your car that is more important than the lives that are out here on this road.
a mother's powerful plea for drivers to be more careful in road construction zones. Her strength in sharing her story of loss reveals the real reason behind the governor's new safety push. It's a sight we see just about everywhere this time of year. Orange construction cones and barrels lining some of our busiest highways. It's all part of several ODOT construction projects to keep up with the growth of the city. And at the same time, statewide, crashes in construction zones seem to happen weekly. That's why Governor Mike DeWine announced a new initiative to improve safety in work zones to prevent those crashes and save lives. DeWine says more troopers will be in cruisers, on motorcycles, and in helicopters, specifically targeting bad drivers in work zones. The governor says since 2019, 99 people have died in work zone crashes, including 9 contractors. One of those contractors was 21-year-old Alex King. He was killed while working as a flagger on a project in Butler County 3 years ago. Alex's mother, Dana King, shared her son's tragic story and her powerful message to everyone hitting the roads this summer.
I just felt like I was going to die. I remember hitting my knees and just screaming as loud as my body would allow me to, and then just wishing that God would just come and snatch my soul from my body. Because to this day, I still don't know how to live without him.
You made a very powerful statement, though, about how people can prevent this from happening to others. What is your message to the people who will be driving on the roads in Ohio?
Please just slow down. Pay attention. There is not a phone call. There's not a text message. There's nothing in your car that is more important than the lives that are out here on this road. One split-second distraction can cause a lifetime of devastation, because I live it every single day.
Governor DeWine says the initiative has been underway since Memorial Day, the beginning of the 100 deadliest days on the roads. Also this week, a bill about drag performances went before lawmakers. House Bill 245 would prohibit drag performers from performing anywhere other than designated adult entertainment venues. The bill has more than 40 co-sponsors who say this is about protecting children. Some LGBTQ+ advocates say the bill is an attempt to suppress their culture, and it comes with some hefty penalties. The language in the bill would make it illegal to perform in public places where, quote, the performer is exhibiting a gender identity that is different from the performer's gender assigned at birth. Penalties under the bill range from a first-degree misdemeanor if the performance happens in front of a juvenile, and can go all the way up to a fourth-degree felony if the performance is, quote, obscene and happens in front of someone 12 years old and younger. It's also important to note that the bill is not limited to drag performers. It also includes topless dancers, go-go dancers, strippers, and exotic dancers. There was a lot of back and forth at the committee hearing. Take a look.
Do you think all drag shows are harmful to children and/or obscene?
Yes.
And so do you think this bill bans all drag shows?
No. Just where children shouldn't be.
But all drag shows are harmful to children and obscene, so any drag show should be banned, correct?
If it is not in a cabaret business, then it should not be allowed for children to be in. I mean, you wouldn't take them to a strip club now, would you?
So my question is,
The bill is still in the House Criminal Justice Committee. No word on when the committee may vote on it. Ahead of the November election, Governor Mike DeWine signed 2 bills into law. One makes sure President Joe Biden is on the Ohio ballot in November. The other bans foreign money in statewide ballot initiative campaigns. He called the legislature into special session specifically to deal with those 2 issues. I interviewed him about the bills the day after he signed them into law. House Bill 2 moves Ohio's deadline to certify candidates for the November election from August 7th to September 1st. That means the deadline now falls after the Democratic National Convention will nominate the president.
Ridiculous situation that we were even talking about, that Biden might not be on the ballot in the fall.
Now that is no longer a situation. The governor also signed House Bill 1. It bans foreign nationals, including lawful permanent U.S. residents or green card holders, from contributing to statewide ballot initiative campaigns. Opponents have argued it will have a chilling effect on participation in those campaigns because of the fear of penalties under the law and the uncertainty of how it will be applied.
I don't think there's any chilling effect. We've seen here in Ohio that people can get an issue on the ballot and they can get it passed.
He was referring to last election when Ohioans passed initiatives protecting access to abortion and legalizing recreational marijuana. Some Republicans also raised concerns the new foreign money law will get rejected in court because of the ban on green card holders making contributions to campaigns.
Changing this long departure from federal law, a critical free speech issue, is going to cause this bill to get struck down.
Everything is going to be challenged in court today, and so we'll see what courts do.
Both bills, both laws, will go into effect 90 days from when the governor signed them. That will be about 2 months before the November election. And you may be wondering where the governor was for that interview. I actually caught up with him after he and the First Lady toured Ohio's newest state park. Great Council State Park in Xenia officially opened on Friday. It's right off US 68 in town. The area used to be called Old Chillicothe, a Shawnee town with a rich history founded in the 1770s. The park features a 12,000 square foot immersive center, a native plant prairie, and a half-mile loop trail. Inside the center, there are exhibits depicting what life was like for settlers and Native Americans in the late 1700s.
This was a period of time where the settlers were sometimes living very close with the Shawnees and trading with them and living in peace and learning from each other. And other times, of course, there was all-out war going on. That's part of our history.
Great Council State Park is Ohio's 76th state park. Again, it is now open for visitors. Still ahead on Face the State, remembering Paternoster House. It gave dignity to those dying of AIDS, and one snapshot of a patient and his family changed the conversation about the disease. We look back at its lasting impact and its place in Columbus history. June is Pride Month. Today, we're bringing you the story of Paternoster. It's a house where unlikely allies worked together to fight prejudice against the gay community. 10 TV's Kevin Lander spoke with a man who saw firsthand the important work being done.
Barb Cordell didn't have much money.
When she died, to a testament to this,
literally, she had $6.18 to her name.
And what she did have, her son Randy says she gave away.
That's exactly how she'd want it. She was probably upset that she hadn't given away the $6.
But her life was full of riches.
No, none of us make a dime. I get a lot out of it, though.
That she shared with anyone who needed them at Pater Noster House.
I've been getting good care. I've been getting good help.
Barb opened Pater Noster in 1985. It was a hospice house for people with HIV and AIDS. Pater Noster started with just one patient who Barb met at a homeless shelter.
In 1985, people started coming in who had HIV. We found our first one actually at the open shelter. The next day, 2 more men came in who needed housing. So we quickly changed a house for the homeless into a house for AIDS, simply because AIDS was here and nobody was really addressing it, and it just needed to be done. It wasn't in my plan of things. And now that's what we do.
Svetlana Harlan works at the Ohio History Connection. She says Barb and a group of volunteers cared for more than 900 people.
Pater Noster House provided 24/7 medical care, food, a place to stay, and also fellowship and friendship, and a dignified place for a lot of folks to spend their final days.
Barb opened Pater Noster during a time of intense homophobia, made even worse by the AIDS epidemic. She was a devout Catholic, and many of her patients were LGBTQ.
For Barb, she didn't see it as an issue. She saw it as these are folks that need help.
She just was all about the individual. Every individual was a child of God to her.
Barb gave all she had to the patients at Pater Noster, but the volunteers gave even more. They comforted the dying, as many battled their own HIV infections.
They worked alongside those who were dying, knowing that they'd be in that same bed someday.
One of those volunteers was a gender-fluid man named Peta. He was HIV positive. He took care of people who were sicker than him.
I'm just somebody that's looking for the smallest little bit of hope out there.
One of the people Peta cared for was a gay activist named David Kirby. He came to Pater Noster in the last months of his life.
I hope that Pater Noster can grow and be able to take care of more sick people, just like I'm being taken care of.
Therese Frere famously photographed David's final moments. It showed his body, ravaged by AIDS, and his father cradling him. David's picture was published in Life magazine and used in a Benetton ad. The photo has been credited with humanizing the AIDS epidemic. It defied the stereotype that people with the virus died in isolation.
The fact that we were seeing these images of kind of a typical American family surrounding their loved one who was dying of this disease, it showed that, in fact, people were there for their loved ones, and they were kind of fighting this idea of, like, this is a disease that isolates folks.
Pater Noster closed in 2000, leaving behind a rich history. Soon, the Ohio History Connection plans to honor it with a historical marker to make sure the legacy of Pater Noster and its patients are treasured today.
The whole idea of trying to serve people started with a simple Our Father in my heart.
There are more than 1,700 historic markers in Ohio, but only 3 of them honor LGBTQ+ sites. The marker at Pater Noster is one of 10 that are planned to honor that community's stories across the state. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you back here next Sunday at 11:30.